Hi, this is Kevin with Advanced Leather Solutions. We're going to do a demonstration today of the application of our generic browns. Now we have two different versions of generic brown. We have a coffee bean brown and we have a mahogany brown. Now they both will render dark, but coffee bean will be less red or perhaps more to the green, whereas the mahogany is going to be more to the red side of things. Now we're going to apply the base coat across the leather. Once that is done, we're then going to adjust the color with what we call the print coat. The print coat application is going to be put on stages. So we're going to do everything with the base, and then we're going to do 3 different tiers of the print so we can see the degree of darkening that each tier presents. Application tool for the base will be the standard foam brush. Application tool for the print will be our tamping sponge with that erratic face on it. Paper towel will be in play, and you'll see that in just a minute. So I'm going to get started, and I'm going to apply the base coat to the left side of the leather, and the way I'm doing that is I'm going to apply it in the form of a bead along the edge of the applicator, and then I'm going to simply wipe it in a normal standard painting motion. A little bit more color, and then down. You want to be light in the hand, because the lighter in the hand you are, the less the tendency will be for streaking. Now this is going to require multiple coats in order to get where we need to be. And so now we have one coat of the base down on the coffee bean side of things, and let's try one coat of the mahogany. Again, a bead, and you can see how much redder that is. Onto the applicator, and then onto the leather. Actually have excellent covering power, as you can see. Okay, so now we're ready to put a second coat on. Now we actually have pretty good coverage. Remember, this was gray, and now we're going to be putting a second coat of the color on, and it's essentially the same procedure. Now you can put it directly onto the applicator as such, and then you are lightly applying it to the surface of the leather, like so. Not complicated at all. You want to get into the crevices, if you have folds and that kind of thing. You want to be able to get it not so much all the way in, but at least in far enough so that when the leather is looked at from afar, you are not going to see the original color. So now you can let it air dry if you'd like. Also, you can accelerate drying using something like a hair dryer. In our case, we're actually going to use a heat gun, but I'm not going to use that until after I color the second portion of this. So now we're on to the mahogany reference. I'm doing the same thing, a little bit of color onto the applicator, and then applying it. As you can see, sometimes it's okay if you the first pass you went up and down, and the second pass if you go side to side. Really doesn't matter. If you want to do a gentle application of the color, you can see I'm not pressing hard, but you do want to make sure that you have sufficient color on to have decent coverage. These are water-based colors, so they're safe to use in your home. There's actually no obnoxious odor, and frankly there's no odor at all. So now we have a fairly even distribution of the color in both cases. And you can continue around the piece like this, letting it air dry, so by the time you get to the back end of a sofa, the front end is going to be dry, but you could use a hair dryer. In our case, we're going to be using a commercial grade heat gun in order to accelerate drying. And what does drying mean? It means that the water content of the color mixture has evaporated away. And so when we talk about the color coat drying, that's what we mean. And of course, the heat gun accelerates that evaporation, allowing for the water in the color system to evaporate away. You'll notice that I'm moving the gun around. I'm not pointing it at any one place for more than a couple of seconds or even less than that. and I'm holding it obliquely. That is to say, I'm allowing the air to pass across the leather. I'm not pointing it directly down onto the leather. Well, now that we have the base color applied, and we have our coffee bean on one side, our mahogany on the other, what we're going to do is apply our print coat, a print color, which is going to darken, and it's going to darken it to depending upon the number of coats we actually apply, proportionally. So we're going to try 1, then 2, then 3. And so to do that, I want to mask off a section of this, the section that we already have colored. So I'm using standard grade masking paper, and I'm going to apply it approximately 2.5 inches down this line so that we can have an area of break, and then begin the tamping process. So how do we apply the print color? Well, we apply the print color, which is in this container here, using this device, which, as you can see, it's a sponge that we have established an erratic face to it. And so the way we actually accomplish this goal is we put some of the print color onto some kind of an applicator container, or some kind of a color container. In this case, you can see we're using this happy paper plate. Kind of move it around a little bit so that we have somewhat of an even distribution. It doesn't have to be perfect. And we do the same thing on our mahogany. So we may as well do both of these at the same time. Shake it up a little bit, pour a bit out, swirl it around. Now, if we look at this color, and we can see it better if I do it this way, you can see it's darker than the base. And then the same thing is going to be true with the mahogany. So with the coffee bean. And so we're actually going to be taking each of these colors to a slightly darker level and creating a color variation or modeling effect as we go. So let's try the process. What we do is we put some color onto the applicator. Check it out. We then take the color and we take the majority of the color off the applicator onto this paper towel. So you can see I want minimal application on the applicator. Then rapid motion, rapidly tamping up and down. I'm creating a sense of color variation. If there's an area where the color has built up a little bit more than what you'd like, take the flat side of the sponge and tamp it. Make sure that when you are tamping, you are doing a rapid up and down motion. Don't drag, because otherwise you'll create a swirl, and the swirl will be obvious. You actually can do that if you want, but it will create an antiquing effect. So now on to the mahogany. Same concept. Repeat the process into the color. Make sure we have good color application. We do. Off to the paper towel. Take the majority of the color off, and away we go. Okay, so we've applied our first level of overlay color or modeling effect, and let's take a look at the differential that we've established so far. So I'm going to remove the masking tape, and you can see the color differential. See how this is darker than that, this is darker than that, and see how this is darker than that. And frankly, you want subtlety in this process. You can always go darker, but it's always going to be a little bit it's going to be a little easier to go darker than to reverse the process and go back to lighter again. And so let's see what happens when we put our second level of color down. We're going to be repeating this process. I'm going to take the paper towel and sort of give us a new clean edge, but I'm going to use the same tool. It already has some color on it from the first pass, into the print color, off onto the paper towel, and then wrap it up and down. Bang, 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 bang. But I'm not putting a lot on, just minimal application, because I don't want complete coverage. Same thing on the mahogany side of the world. A little bit in, onto the paper towel, and then onto the leather. You can see the glistening, I'm sure, on the screen, and what that's showing you is those little points of color that are applied, which is what we want. We want to see sort of dots of color or areas of color, and we don't want to see complete coverage. So now let's take a look as we lift up the masking tape and see where we are as we gradually darken. So you can see base, 1 layer of print, 2 layers of print. Base, 1 layer of print, 2 layers of print. And now we're going to move on to the third application, which would be probably where most people would want to stop, and that is would be a 3rd layer of print. So putting it the correct side up would help. Here we go. And we'll do that in the next video sequence. So now for our third pass of color. We're going to follow exactly the same procedure. We're going to be using our tamping tool, and we're going to tamp it into our print color, getting pretty decent coverage, taking the color off onto a paper towel so that we don't have a lot of color on here, and then a tamping motion. You can make it as dark as you want using this procedure. Now we'll move over to the mahogany. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to apply the color to the applicator. We're going to take it off onto the paper towel. And if it isn't dark enough for you, then it just means it requires a little bit more coverage. Notice the direct up and down process. You can let it air dry. In our case, for expediency's sake, we're going to use our heat source. The water is evaporating away, leaving the color behind. And that should do it. Let's go take a look and see how this appears now. So to gently pull back the masking tape. Now you can see how significant a differential that we have between here and here now, because we actually applied a little bit more color in there. But we have now grades of differential from here to here to here to here. And of course the same thing is true here. So depending upon the amount of print coat that you put on determines the degree of darkening that you'll actually take it. This is Kevin with Advanced Leather Solutions. You can see this demonstration, of course, and you can see how easy it is for you to attain the color you want using our generic coloring system.